You would not have survived in a medieval castle. And now I will tell you why. We are used to seeing medieval castles in movies, majestic, romantic, and full of noble knights. They seem to us to be a symbol of reliability and impregnability. But what if this beautiful picture is just an illusion, hiding a harsh and uncomfortable reality? Behind the thick stone walls lay a completely different life, governed not by the laws of honor, but by the harsh rules of survival. Every day in the castle was a test that modern man would hardly be able to endure. It was a struggle against cold, hunger, and conditions that we would today call unbearable. Watch this video to the end, and you will find out why the most desirable place in the castle was not the treasury, but the ordinary kitchen, and what simple item of clothing could save the life of its owner. I discovered this by accident while studying the archives of old estates, where the servants' records held the truth about illegitimate heirs. In those days, reputation was the only currency that had real value in New York high society. An illegitimate child in an old aristocratic family was considered a sentence that could not be overturned by money or connections. The servants, who spent 24 hours a day in the house, knew much more about their master's physiology than their closest friends. They were the first to notice their mistress's morning sickness during the months when her official husband was away on a long trip to Europe. Attentive maids saw how the ladies' figures changed under their lush corsets, which had to be tightened more and more. This dangerous knowledge gave the servants an unspoken, almost frightening power over those to whom they humbly served coffee every morning. The quiet shadows in starched aprons became the keepers of information that could destroy the grandeur of any noble house overnight. The staff paid particular attention to details that might seem completely insignificant to a casual guest or social acquaintance. The laundresses who washed the bed linen in the basement were the first to learn the most intimate secrets of the marital bedroom. They saw the absence of signs of intimacy between spouses, or conversely, traces of secret meetings that were not supposed to leave a trace. In a world where every public step was strictly regulated, the silence behind closed bedroom doors spoke much louder than any official statements. Servants constantly exchanged this information in the cramped rooms of the basement floors, creating their own parallel history of the great city. Maids who helped ladies dress and undress noticed the slightest changes in the behavior and physical condition of their mistresses. They saw hidden letters, traces of tears, and signs of secret pregnancies even before the legitimate husband himself found out about them. This knowledge created an invisible bond between mistress and maid, based on fear of exposure and shame. Every footman standing at the door analyzed the resemblance of newborn children to their official fathers, comparing facial features and eye color. If a child looked too much like the stable boy or music teacher, it became the main topic of discussion at the servants' table. Rumors spread through the back stairs faster than fire, penetrating neighboring houses and becoming the property of all the service staff on Fifth Avenue. Thus, the fate of the future inheritance often depended on how loyal the senior butler or nanny would be. The power of servants in the Gilded Age was enormous, although it was never flaunted and was hidden behind a mask of deep respect. The owners of mansions understood that their lives were in the hands of the people who washed their floors and cleaned their expensive clothes. One careless dismissal or hurtful word could lead to the secret of their daughter's birth becoming known to the whole world. Therefore, keeping loyal servants cost the aristocracy a fortune, which was paid for their eternal silence and devotion. Do you think people living in poverty had the right to control the fates of their incredibly rich and influential employers? Was it fair retribution for social inequality, or just a low way to profit from someone else's misfortune? Your opinion is very important for understanding the moral climate of that brilliant, but sometimes very cruel and hypocritical era. Write about it in the comments below this video so we can discuss it together. Be sure to subscribe to our channel if you want to continue delving into the darkest and most intriguing corners of world history. We have a lot more material in store for you about what the great dynasties hid behind their impeccable facades. Your support helps us find rare facts and share them with you in the most convenient and interesting format. Click on the bell so you don't miss the next video about the secrets that change the world. Want to know the secret that made the great houses tremble at every rustle in the servants' corridor in the silence of the night? It often happened that the legitimate heir to a huge fortune did not actually have a single drop of her official father's blood. In the age of splendor, marriages were arranged for the sake of financial alliances, and love was often sought elsewhere, outside the stuffy ballrooms. If a family did not have an heir for a long time, it threatened the immediate transfer of property to distant relatives, which was considered a real disaster. In such desperate cases, women took enormous risks to give their husbands the long-awaited child at any cost. It did not matter to them whether the father was a penniless artist, a successful officer, or even a handsome stable boy from their own estate. The main thing was to preserve the status of the house and secure the future by concealing the fact of adultery under the guise of legal marriage and motherhood. The servants saw all these secret visitors who slipped into the house through the back door under the cover of thick fog. They noticed how the lady of the house lingered in the garden longer than usual, or suddenly changed her usual walking routes in the park. Nannies who spent much more time with the children than their own mothers were the first to notice strange inconsistencies in their facial features. They saw how brown-eyed parents gave birth to a daughter with eyes the color of the northern sky, reminiscent of the eyes of that very stable boy. In the children's rooms, filled with the most expensive toys, there was often a heavy atmosphere of anxiety that only the nannies could sense. The staff understood why the mother never stayed alone with her daughter and why her gaze was always full of hidden, unrelenting pain. These women in modest bonnets kept such secrets for decades, becoming unwitting and very dangerous accomplices in a grand deception. They knew that every word of truth could destroy the life of an innocent child who had become a hostage to the ambitions of his high-ranking parents. But sometimes loyalty gave way to burning resentment at the injustice, and then the secret burst out, forever changing the course of family history. Sometimes the owners themselves tried to bribe the servants to confirm the legitimacy of the child's birth in front of doubting relatives or lawyers. Entire scenarios of false births were created, in which midwives and trusted chambermaids who knew how to keep their mouths shut played a key role. This whole spectacle was staged in order to preserve the millions that were to pass to the illegitimate but universally recognized heir. In these cases, the servants became the directors and main actors in the drama unfolding behind the closed doors of the master's bedrooms. It is interesting to see how this topic is perceived in different parts of the world, where class traditions had their own unique and sometimes very harsh characteristics. Where are you watching our video from? And are there similar legends about substitutions in noble families preserved in your culture? Do you agree with the arguments presented that servants were the main judges of the aristocracy in those distant times? Your comments help us better understand the interests of our audience and find topics that resonate with many. You have certainly never heard of this unique and truly frightening secret because it was erased from the official chronicles. There was a secret practice of passing off an illegitimate daughter as a distant relative who had been taken into a wealthy home solely out of Christian mercy. But there were also more daring, almost criminal substitutions, when servants helped to hide the sudden death of the real baby heir. This took place in the deepest secrecy, in the dead of night, when only the most loyal and highly paid servants were awake in the house. The personal maid, who knew every intimate secret of her mistress, became her only and most reliable support in such moments. She organized the complex transportation of children, secretly bribed corrupt midwives, and forced the junior staff to remain silent, using threats and gold. The entire mansion was plunged into a conspiracy of silence, where every footman and cook became links in one endless and very dangerous chain. The substitution of the child guaranteed the preservation of the title and lands, but forever deprived those who participated in this nocturnal affair of peace of mind. Such girls grew up in unimaginable luxury, not even suspecting that their right to this illustrious name depended on the word of an old housekeeper. They received the best education in the world, mastered social manners, and prepared for the most brilliant marriages to princes and bankers. At the same time, downstairs in the stuffy kitchen, the staff whispered about their true, far from noble origins and the details of the substitution. The servants watched with irony as the false heiress tried on the family tiaras that by law and blood had never belonged to her. This inevitably created a strange and very painful tension between the noble lady and her simple servant in their daily interactions. The roles of dominance and submission often switched places behind the tightly closed doors of the lady's boudoir, where truth came at a price. The mistress of a great house effectively became a hostage to her chambermaid, forced to meekly endure her every whim, demand, and arrogance. A single note sent to the police or a newspaper could turn the queen of the ball into a disgraced outcast with no means of support. Like this video if you are struck by how fragile and illusory the power of the aristocracy was in the face of their own disenfranchised servants. This paradox of history shows that true power often lay not in money, but in the information possessed by the most inconspicuous people. Your support in the form of likes motivates us to continue searching for such incredible stories that reveal the true face of past eras. We appreciate every viewer who helps us develop this channel and make historical facts accessible to everyone. What you are about to learn will forever change your perception of the luxurious life and architectural refinements of New York's grand mansions. The very architecture of these buildings was specifically designed to facilitate the most efficient storage and simultaneous disclosure of dangerous family secrets. During the Gilded Age, houses were built with a unique double system of corridors and staircases so that servants could move around completely unnoticed by their masters. These narrow passageways behind the walls of luxurious halls were veritable arteries of information, where every careless whisper was amplified many times over by echoes. Servants could easily hear confidential conversations in offices through ventilation grills or watch spicy scenes in bedrooms through keyholes. They were like disembodied shadows who saw all the dirty underside of the lives of those who considered themselves demigods in the glow of gas lamps. Information about who was really the father of a growing child circulated through these hidden corridors with incredible speed. The lackeys knew about their master's plans before they had time to discuss them with their lawyers or close relatives at official meetings. Often, nannies and wet nurses became much closer to the children than their biological mothers, which created very dangerous and unpredictable attachments. A child could accidentally reveal the most intimate secret heard from a beloved nanny, who in a moment of candor told the truth about the real father. The young heirs, not yet aware of the cruel and hypocritical rules of adult society, became unwitting carriers of information that could destroy the family. Parents lived in constant, exhausting fear that their biggest secret would be revealed by the very person they had hired. Every dismissal of even the most insignificant servant turned into a complex diplomatic operation with the payment of huge, sometimes exorbitant, compensation for eternal silence. The owners had to make sure that the dismissed employee did not go straight to the tabloid press with their sensational revelations. But no amount of money could guarantee 100% security in a world where gossip was the main entertainment and a means of social destruction of competitors. Do you agree that even the strongest walls cannot hold back the truth if at least one outsider knows it? In those days, servants were not officially considered full members of society, but they were the ones who actually held the keys to reputation. The footmen, standing motionless at the doors during formal dinners, heard every word spoken at the table in the heat of the moment. They recorded every meaningful glance and every touch that went beyond the strict and cold social etiquette of the time. The staff noticed when the master of the house showed inexplicable and cruel coldness toward his eldest daughter, in whom he did not see his continuation. This icy atmosphere at the dinner table, hidden behind polite and empty phrases, was crystal clear to those who poured expensive wine. The servants understood the true reason for this alienation much better than the family's closest friends, who were invited to a dinner party at the mansion. Information became the only real tool for survival for people who had neither high titles nor their own land holdings. They learned to use their knowledge so subtly as to ensure their safety and prosperity for years to come. Sometimes servants used their unique knowledge not for blackmail or enrichment, but to protect innocent children they had grown attached to. An old nanny could loyally hide evidence of a girl's illegitimate birth for years so that she would not lose her legal status and happy future. She hid compromising letters, destroyed unnecessary documents, or even forged dates in church records if she had access to them. Such loyalty often cost servants their own peaceful lives, turning them into eternal and silent guardians of other people's shameful sins. In return for their loyalty, they received lifelong maintenance on the estate or special privileges that aroused undisguised envy among the rest of the servants. Within each large house, a complex hierarchy was created, based solely on who knew what and how much about the origins of the heirs. Those who possessed the most dangerous secrets were effectively above the butler, even if they held the most modest positions in the kitchen or laundry. It was an invisible war for influence, unfolding against the backdrop of glittering balls and official receptions for high society. Are you ready for the shocking truth about how one small and inconspicuous detail in a wardrobe could reveal the secret of birth? In the age of splendor, clothing was not just decoration, but a very strict social code that professional maids knew to perfection. If a young lady suddenly received jewelry that clearly did not match her official income, it immediately raised a lot of pointed questions. Maids recorded all expensive gifts from mysterious patrons, who in fact could turn out to be the real biological fathers of these girls. They saw bills for the services of the best dressmakers, which came from the offices of lawyers who had nothing to do with the affairs of the head of the family. These paper trails were like distinct breadcrumbs, leading to the truth hidden in the deep and dusty archives of the big city. The servants knew how to read between the lines in letters and account books that their masters carelessly left on their massive oak desks. The information accumulated over the years, turning into a powerful weapon that waited for its moment to strike at the most inopportune moment. Interestingly, many servants of that time kept their own secret records, hoping that one day this valuable information would bring them wealth. The diaries of maids from the Age of Splendor are literally overflowing with detailed descriptions of strange night visits and overheard conversations about true heritage and purity of blood. They described how the proud mistress of the house secretly wept over a miniature portrait of a man who was never her lawful and wedded husband. But it was his features that were so clearly and undeniably visible in her growing daughter, causing whispers behind her back in the light. Such personal notes became real-time bombs that could explode decades after the parents' fateful sin. History records real cases where old servants' notebooks became the main basis for high-profile lawsuits over the right to a huge fortune. Heirs who considered themselves legitimate suddenly found themselves nobody when evidence from a cook or footman from the past came to light. Do you think it is fair that years later, the past can catch up with a person so cruelly and deprive them of everything? The life of a woman in the Age of Splendor was in many ways like living in a cramped, golden cage, where every bar was forged from expectations. The girl, who was officially considered the heiress, was raised from an early age as the main symbol of her noble family's financial and social success. She was taught to masterfully hide any feelings, to strictly control her every movement, and to never reveal what was going on in her soul. But if she herself knew about her illegitimate origins, this moral burden became almost unbearable and destructive for her. She saw the servants constantly whispering behind her back and felt their glances, full of either pity or hidden triumph. The atmosphere in such a house became incredibly heavy and suffocating, despite the luxurious interiors and the abundance of fresh air from the parks. Every day turned into a tiresome game where any mistaken behavior could provoke a new wave of suspicion among those around her. The girl lived in a state of constant defense, unable to open up even to those closest to her because the truth was too dangerous for everyone. Often such unfortunate girls sought sincere comfort from simple servants, who were the only people who knew their true and sad stories. In the silence of the empty kitchen or in the thick shade of the garden, conversations took place that could never have happened in the formal living room of the manor house. An ordinary maid could become the only true friend to a lady who was mortally afraid of her official father and did not trust her mother. This emotional closeness was extremely dangerous for both parties, as it grossly violated all the strict social boundaries of the time. The family could resort to the most extreme and cruel measures to immediately break off such a relationship, fearing accidental exposure of the main secret of their home. Happiness and peace were very rare guests in those mansions, where the very foundation was originally built on lies and name substitution. Girls deprived of the truth about their birth often felt deeply lonely, even when surrounded by hundreds of guests at lavish balls. Their lives were a constant reminder that external glamour and wealth came at the price of sincerity and freedom of choice. In the closed world of late 19th century New York, malicious rumors were far more terrifying than any real physical weapon available to humans at the time. Information that began as a short journey in a stuffy kitchen could end up as a scandalous headline in a newspaper specializing in dirty social intrigues and exposés. Maids from different houses constantly exchanged the latest news during rare walks in the park or in cramped shops near their homes. Thus, the most intimate secrets of one family instantly became the property of the entire prestigious neighborhood, turning into a muffled but destructive buzz. If a rumor began to spread throughout the city that a young lady from a respected family was not her father's biological daughter, it meant ruin. Lucrative engagements were immediately broken off. Invitations to the season's main balls stopped coming, and the doors of New York's finest homes closed to them forever. A reputation built up over decades of hard work and propriety could be completely destroyed in just a few days of active gossip. Servants understood this weapon better than anyone else and knew how to use it with surgical precision when they wanted to punish their cruel masters. Effectively protecting the family reputation required enormous effort on the part of the aristocrats and constant, total control over all information flows within the large house. The owners of huge mansions were often forced to hire special trusted people who had to secretly monitor the general mood among the servants. It was a real internal intelligence service whose main purpose was to identify potential traitors, gossips, and dangerous blackmailers in livery in a timely manner. Any servant who showed even the slightest curiosity about the family's private affairs could be immediately dismissed without the right to a recommendation. But even such harsh and sometimes unfair control measures could not completely stop the spread of the bitter truth, which always strives to come to light. The agonizing fear of exposure haunted many wealthy families for several generations, turning their lives into an endless and exhausting psychological defense. They paid huge sums for silence, but knew that one day the truth might still slip from the lips of a resentful maid or a drunken footman. Greatness and shame always went hand in hand in these gilded halls, where every witness was a potential enemy. The deepest and truly sad part of this whole story has always been the children, who became mere pawns in their parents' games. The girl who grew up in an oppressive atmosphere of secrecy often felt like a complete stranger in her own home, not understanding the true reasons for her loved one's coldness. She could sincerely and devotedly love the man she considered her father, without even suspecting that he saw her as a traitor. Her beautiful youth was forever overshadowed by invisible shadows that haunted her at every social ball and every official reception. She danced gracefully in the dazzling light of thousands of candles, but inside her there was always a frightening darkness of uncertainty and a latent fear of her past. The servants who knew the truth sometimes unconsciously became her unwitting executioners, constantly reminding her of her dubious status with their ambiguous behavior or glances. The child felt that the world around him was built on some kind of falsehood, but could not find the words to express this strange feeling. This led to deep psychological trauma that remained with the person throughout his long and outwardly prosperous life. Sometimes the terrible truth was revealed at the most inappropriate and dramatic moment, for example, right before the wedding or during the reading of the official will. This inevitably led to grandiose public scandals that destroyed the lives of dozens of people overnight and led to the complete collapse of great clans. An heiress could lose everything that made up her world in an instant: her good name, her fortune, her high social status, and her future. She would find herself literally on the street with absolutely no skills for a difficult, independent life in this cruel and cynical world. The most frightening thing was the betrayal of those who, by law and nature, were supposed to protect her from any misfortunes and public attacks. Those people who had reverently bowed before her yesterday now demonstratively walked past her, pretending they had never known her. In this endlessly cruel world of the Age of Splendor, the fall from the very top of the social ladder was incredibly fast, painful, and absolutely final. No one wanted to tarnish their reputation by associating with an illegitimate woman, even if yesterday she had been the life of the party and the queen of beauty. Today, when we look with admiration at the surviving mansions of the Age of Splendor, we see only the external beauty of the architecture and the dazzling brilliance of the gilding. But behind these cold walls lie many thousands of untold stories of women whose fates were cruelly broken for the sake of preserving honor. We can only guess how many terrible secrets were taken to the grave by loyal servants and their endlessly cunning and influential masters. These walls still remember the bitter tears shed into silk pillows and the quiet whispers of conspirators in the night corridors of the estates. The true price of the unimaginable luxury of that time was measured not in carats of diamonds, but in broken hearts and the complete loss of the right to truth. The age of splendor left us only monuments of beauty, forever imbued with the deep bitterness of human tragedies hidden from the eyes of the general public. The servants, who knew which of the children were actually illegitimate, were the true and only honest chroniclers of their complex and hypocritical times. Their forced silence or their rare but apt words shaped the true image of the society we study today in books. We must always remember these invisible and often disenfranchised witnesses who reminded the powerful of the world of the transience of their earthly greatness. No amount of accumulated wealth and no high titles could hide the truth forever, if at least one person in a starched livery knew it. Every detail of the luxurious interior, every expensive painting on the wall, was a silent witness to a drama whose true scale we are only now beginning to realize. The history of the great dynasties is not only a long list of their victories and achievements, but also a huge shadow of shameful secrets. The true history of the Age of Splendor still awaits its final and complete revelation through the muffled voices of those who always remained in the shadows of their masters. It is important for us to understand that behind every great fortune, there was often not only talent and hard work, but also human sacrifice and deception. These lessons from the past remind us of the value of honesty and how precious it is to be ourselves rather than pawns. We continue to explore these labyrinths of history to give back a voice to those who were denied a voice in their golden age. This story forces us to take a completely new look at all the glittering facades of the past and seriously consider the price people paid. We have seen clearly how the hidden power of information in the hands of ordinary servants could radically change the course of history and destroy the lives of entire families. How do you truly feel after learning today about such dark and unsightly aspects of life in the golden cage of 19th century America? Do you feel sincere sympathy for the fate of these deceived women? Or do you believe that such rules were necessary for the survival of the aristocracy? Please suggest topics for our future videos about the most intimate secrets of the Gilded Age that you would like to explore together in the comments. It is important for us to know which aspects of history interest you the most and evoke the strongest emotional response when you watch our content on the channel. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to be the first to learn about new hidden pages of world history that are not usually talked about. We appreciate your support and promise to continue to delight you with the most in-depth and high-quality historical research and exciting stories from the past.